Hi, thank you for spending some time with me to learn about empowering yourself. I am Rebecca Bourne. I am the Director of Connections, A Safe Place. There's my email. I hope that you'll take some time to respond to me and tell me what you thought or if you have any questions. Please take some time to look around our website. There's all kinds of resources for you. Thank you so much for attending. Let's get started. First off, let's take a look at why people feel powerless. Because Connections typically works with victims of childhood sexual trauma, I'm coming at it from the perspective of having experienced that. But certainly, all of us, whether it was sexual abuse or dysfunction in our home, as a child, it's a natural to feel like we have no sense of power. Today, I'm focusing on, in this slide, about someone who has experienced sexual trauma. So as a child victim, first of all, you were powerless to stop the abuse. That's something that gets very confusing for victims because we have a culture that kind of does this stuff about telling an adult and empowering children that this is a safe touch, this is not a safe touch. But the reality and truth is that children cannot stop sex abuse. And so in that moment and in your experiences of sexual trauma, you were powerless to stop it. And typically, at all costs, we don't want to understand that we were powerless. Our culture doesn't like that concept. But the truth was, you were powerless to stop the abuse. Perhaps you were also powerless that you couldn't find an adult to care. Most victims never tell anyone. They keep it silent until maybe as an adult, when they have anxiety and depression and their relationships are falling apart or they're hurting themselves. Then they have to take a step forward and kind of own this is what happened. But as a child, it's very likely you didn't tell somebody. And if you did tell somebody, it's also very likely you weren't believed, or somebody said they'd make it stop and it didn't stop. You just couldn't find somebody or a way to get an adult to care that this was happening. And very, very common, you were powerless to allow your emotional feelings to be expressed. One of the most common one is that sense and that feeling of shame. Let me give you a nugget of truth right here up front. Victims often feel that they are shameful. They take it on as a sense of identity, and they say and feel that they are shame. What I want you to try to grasp today is that shame was never meant to be a sense of identity. Shame was a feeling that you felt in that moment, and it was a feeling that you had no place to express. Remember, you didn't tell anybody. You didn't find an adult who cared. And so that sense of shame, of feeling shame, morphed into a belief about you. The truth is that you are not shame, that it felt shameful. And if you could find a way in which that you could safely recognize and feel that shame and allow it to process out, it'll go a long way in helping you move away from the sense that you are shame. So, as you think about being powerless as a child, stop for a moment and give yourself some self-reflection and ask, where else were you powerless? Because that was then, this is now. Back then you were powerless as a child, but this is now. As an adult, you can move forward into gaining back your power. Because this is now. And your sense of powerlessness as a child can be interrupted, can be overcome, and you can work to gain back your power. My next bullet says, power is not a weapon, it's not about money, or it's not about denial. And this is why this is important for you to wrestle with. Often victims of sexual trauma are afraid to become powerful. Doesn't make sense? Oh, but it does. As a child, remember that you were powerless, and what you experienced as someone being powerful was extremely hurtful, demeaning, minimizing of you, and making you feel like an object. So the very possibility of becoming powerful may be so frightening to you that you won't move near it. That's why I want to clarify for you. Power is not a weapon to be used against other people. It is true that somebody in power hurt you, but you can pick up your own power, and we're going to talk about what that looks like in a minute, and you will not use it as a weapon. Power is also not about money. Yes, money does buy power, and people with money misuse it. But you can have and be a powerful person even if you don't have money. And this thing about denial, many victims of trauma think that as long as I stay in denial, then it's not impacting me and I have power over it. That is absolutely not true. The impact of the sexual trauma you experienced is playing out in your life. It's more in charge than you are. And it is absolutely true that coming out of denial, meaning recognizing what's happened, owning that reality about what's happened, taking down the impact of it, that's what is more powerful. When you get back who you are and operate out of that, coming out of denial is more powerful. And that leads me to the final point on this screen. Your power lies internally. Excuse me, I have to cough for a minute. Sorry about that. Your power lies inside of you. It lies in who you were created capable of being. So let's first lay some groundwork about how you stop giving away your power. Because you have it, you've just been operating out of a place where you are giving it away to others. Here's an example. Do you give away your power by pleasing others in order to fit in? I'm thinking of a classic example of in elementary school, in high school, when you're trying so hard to figure out who you are and what group you belong in, you may override some of your own values and some of the ways that you think in order to fit in. I recently met with a young girl who was being bullied at school. And she was kind of stymied by many aspects of it, really hurting her. But one of the things that was kind of confusing to her, there were people that she considered her friend that when the bully came along, they kind of went along with it. They were giving away their own personal power of their value and care for their friend in order to fit in. So, do you please others? Are you a people pleaser? Do you make sure that you're doing what everybody else wants so that you keep them from being angry? I get how that happens, because sometimes you might believe that if I can keep this person calm and they don't get angry, then they're probably not going to hurt me. And so people pleasing is something that becomes a habit because you think that's what keeps you safe, but you're actually giving away your power. B, do you follow the opinion of a crowd? Boy, in our culture right now, there are segments of our society who have very strong opinions about politics, about sexuality, about relationships, all kinds of things. And it's almost dangerous to rise up and have your own opinion. There's this whole movement about being politically correct. And often we will give away our own personal power, meaning what you think about an issue and how your opinion could impact and maybe have a positive shift on this issue. But because we're afraid of being ostracized, that can happen, of the pushback, we give away our own power and we follow the opinion of the crowd. And then C, we give away your power by thinking that others matter more than you. A core belief that happens as a result of sexual trauma, because when somebody overrode your body and your needs and your heart, they were teaching you that you don't matter. They were treating you as an object. And so you give away your power now thinking that others matter more. You'll do everything for other people and not take care of yourself. You won't ask for a need, and you certainly won't do what I'm going to ask you to do, and that is have a sense that you have rights. You'll see that link there. I'm going to show it to you, but I'm hoping that you'll go back and look at it, that you have rights and you have personal power rights. And this is an example of what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to sit down and write your personal Bill of Rights. And this sample here will give you a great place to start because you're often not sure what that looks like and how to even begin it. I think there's 25 on here, but let me highlight a few of them. The first one, I have the right to ask for what I want. Is that a frightening thought? Is that an unusual thought for you? I wouldn't be surprised, because you've typically denied your needs, denied your wants, so that you feel safer, and because you think that you don't matter as much as other people. But you have the right to ask for what you want. I have 5, I have the right to make mistakes and not have to be perfect. 6, I have the right to follow my own values and standards. You know, some of what happened to you may obliterate your deep down values and standards, and you have the right to uncover those, and you have the right to live from them. I have number 11, I have the right to be angry at someone I love. Whew. 12, I love this one. I have the right to be uniquely myself. I have the right to feel scared and say I'm afraid. Okay, take a look at these 25 possibilities and pick some that work for you and claim your own Bill of Rights. Now let me go back to my screen and reiterate that for you. So taking back your power. Whoop, went too far, hang with me. Taking back your power by writing your own Bill of Rights. It's a good place to start. That's the first thing, start writing your own Bill of Rights. Now, secondly, here's something that's kind of hard. I want you to honestly reflect on how staying where you are is working for you. And when I say that statement to you, you're probably going, well, it's not working for me. That's why I'm sitting here listening to your webinars. That's why I'm on your site looking for some help. It's not working for you. But this is typically what happens. I've worked now for almost 17 years on this issue of helping victims of sexual trauma overcome the impact, the deep impact. And what I find is that when we come to that place of suggesting, if you will work to change this, whether it's a mindset or a belief or a behavior, there's typically some pushback. I get it. First of all, change is difficult. Second of all, the things that you have put in place to manage trauma make sense to you. It's something that has met a need. It's something that works for you. And when I ask you to shift it, there's going to be some really? But I don't know how the world will look like if I don't look at it through this. Let me give you an example. If you have lived most of your life feeling that you are unlovable, and now you start owning the reality that you have been hurt by trauma, and you start telling people, and they start feeding back to you care and concern, and they start saying things like, but you are lovable, I love you. Boy, does that feel good. It should feel good. It has a right to feel good. You need to hear that. But because I'm asking you at Connections to internalize what you're hearing from other people, and I'm asking you to actually make that shift from I'm unlovable to I am lovable, there's a fear that deep inside of you that these people might stop saying these things to you, and you're going to miss that. And there's a fear that if I do make this shift, then I'm not going to hear that anymore. That's how staying in a mindset that says I'm unlovable is working for you. Okay, so I'm asking you to honestly reflect where you are and how is it working for you, and are you willing to try a different way? Because the bottom line, when you're trying to shift anything in your life, are you willing to make that change? Okay? Here's the first skill. So you've got a bill of rights you've written, you've decided how things are working for you, and you're willing to shift it. And the first thing I want you to do is align your power of agreement with the concept of personal growth. Let me explain power of agreement, because if you've not hung around us before, it's kind of like, what is she talking about? This is a sense of power that you want to regain. You absolutely have the power inside of you to decide what you're going to agree with and what you're not going to agree with. And that might sound very foreign to you. Let me give you an example. I was saying that you believe, the example in my last screen was that you're unlovable. Well, you have deep down agreed with that, and you have every reason to, because of how you've been treated, because when you're living out of I'm unlovable, you're setting forth behaviors and attitudes and choices, and you have agreed with it. It becomes a stronghold. You have power to decide, I'm not going to agree with that anymore. I don't know if I'm lovable. I don't really have in my mind a lot of evidence about that, but I'm going to decide I'm not going to agree with it. And when you make that decision, you allow space. You allow for the possibility that I can shift and agree with the evidence that I see that I am lovable. Okay? Right now, I just want you to, because you're wanting to work on gaining personal power back, I want you to inside make that decision that I'm going to agree with the fact that I will learn or I will become a powerful person. Okay? Use your power of agreement to make a shift so that you can explore that you can become powerful. Remember, I said earlier that your sense of power comes from an internal place. All of our work at Connections is designed on the concept that you were created with all you need, whether it's through your genes, through your DNA, you were created with everything you need to be a powerful person, to make an impact in this world. And unfortunately, all of us end up living in, whether it's a house of trauma or a house of dysfunction, we learn different things about ourselves and we move away from understanding fully who we were created to be. Our term is we move away from our authentic identity, our authentic self. That is where your power lies. We have resources here on our website. Go and look at the identity portfolio. It will give you some assessments where you can look at all these different aspects I'm going to talk about, and you can come up with a portfolio about who you really are. Okay, your character. You have ingrained and inborn character qualities within you. There is an assessment about character qualities. You can even go online and look at some of the different definitions of character. Find out which ones you have, find out which ones you want to develop, and do that. Develop character qualities, because those are the things that undergird your value systems. Those are the things that will help you make decisions, will help you have opinions, will help you make choices. Look at your passions. What is it that just energizes you when you get involved in it? Is it about helping children? Is it about dealing with poverty? Is it about food? What is it that sets your energies going? For me, it's injustices. When I see injustice, when I see how children are hurt, when I see levels of disparity, I just get this place inside of me that just has this energy and passion. I know that that means that that's something where the power that I have out of my character, out of my talents, out of my personalities, that when I throw them and use them in alignment with my passions, I am a powerful person and I am designed to make an impact in that issue. Talents. Are you creative? Are you intelligent? Are you inquisitive? Are you musical? Are you a cook? What are those talents that you have? Because when you use those talents as the vehicle to cooperate with your passions, aligned with your character, you are a powerful person. You are using exactly how you were made to make a difference and an impact. And what do you desire? What are those longings? You'll find that they often align with your passions and with your talents. And when you put all that together, that's where your power lies. It's from the inside. It's from who you were created capable of being. So in order to do that portfolio, get connected to who you are inside, you've also got to examine the labels you live under. Some labels like this. Who in your family is the scapegoat, the one who's always in trouble? Who in your family is the one who mediates and makes sure that everybody's getting along? Who in your family is the clown? Those are some of the labels that you have lived under. Then, if you have experienced sexual trauma, what are the labels that have been assigned to you or you believe about yourself? Those are the things that you can shift because they are covering over your authentic self. So examine the labels you live under, use your power of agreement to shift them, and discover your authentic identity where your power lies. Now, let me give you some even more specific things to think and wrestle with that you absolutely have power over. You have power over your attitude. Now, I've spent a lot of time working in the juvenile detention facility, and I love adolescents there. They got attitude, and mostly their attitude comes from a sense of how they're going to protect themselves. They think that that attitude is protecting them from being hurt again. What I try to help them understand and help you understand that whatever attitude you are putting out there is how people are going to react and relate to you. If you have that attitude of anger and stay away from me, you believe that you're protecting yourself, but you're also keeping out what you really are longing for, and that is connection and acceptance. So you have power over the attitude that you present to others. You also have power over your relationship with trauma. Is that a new thought to you? That you actually have a relationship with your trauma? There is another webinar on here. If you haven't looked at it, I encourage you to do that. It will take you through a series of examinations of how are you relating to your trauma. Is it your pet that you're feeding and taking care of? Is it an enemy? Is it your identity? Because you can shift how you view your trauma, and that will give you power about shifting some of the things that we're talking about. You have power about what you do with knowledge, even what you do with this webinar. Because if all you do is sit here and listen to me and don't look at the PDF of it and don't wrestle with some of the things, then you have done nothing with the knowledge that you're being presented with. And that's a tricky thing right now. We live in a time where there is so much available, so many resources available to you that you can just sit and read some of it and think that you've done something to improve your situation. And just knowledge by itself will not do that. Knowledge must move to understanding, must move to actions. We have a tendency that when we read a new book or sit in a webinar or go to a training, that we put on that new knowledge like we've put on a new coat. And we can feel empowered in that moment. We can feel good about it. And we can do that, for a short period of time. But you have until you take in that knowledge, and here's another key of restoration, until you internalize that knowledge, nothing's really going to change. So you have the power to decide what are you going to do with the knowledge that you're gaining. Are you going to take it in? Are you going to do the hard shifts? You also have power over your words. Oh, this is so important. Perhaps when you were growing up, somebody told you that you were stupid, you were like your brother that you didn't like, that you'd never amount to anything. Those are words spoken over you that create a belief system and also an atmosphere around you. And sometimes they end up being self-fulfilling prophecies. So the words that you speak about yourself matter. They make a difference about how you see yourself and how others see yourself. So you have power to choose your words, what you speak over yourself, what you speak over your future, what you speak over those you love. You have power to shift that. You also have power over your choices. Now, often that is a new thinking for someone who's been through sexual trauma. Because remember, you felt powerless. You didn't have a choice about what that person did to your body or your heart or your spirit. And so you don't think that you have the power of choice, but you do today. You can choose to do something with this information. You can choose to shift your power of agreement. You can choose your different behaviors. You have the power over what you choose. And you can gain that by learning and watching how your choices work out for you. Are the consequences and the results of your choices what you really want to happen? If not, you can choose to make a different choice. Rachel and I laugh a lot because at one time when we were working together, we helped each other heal. We helped each other get our power back. And I once in exasperation said to her, make a different choice. And she laughs about it today. She said it was one of the best things you ever said to me. She didn't like it in the moment, but it was one of the best things. Make a different choice. You have power. I want you to stop a minute too and think, what else do you have power over? And what in your Bill of Rights now can you make a different choice and exercise your power? My last slide here, what I'm talking about is you have power to develop escape routes. You've already identified some of the places where you feel powerless. And you have now a Bill of Rights stating where you want to go and what you want to do. Well, some of that sense of powerlessness is so natural and ingrained that you've got to work to develop escape routes out of that sense of powerlessness. Here are 4 ways you can do that. Use your creativity. Now, for us at Connections, creativity means looking at a situation from a different perspective. Thinking creatively. I'm not talking about art and music and that kind of thing. I'm talking about thinking creatively, looking at your sense of, I'm trying to change my words. How can I creatively make that happen? Use your sense of intelligence. You are intelligent people. And I'm not talking again about what you learned in school. I don't care if you flunked algebra. You are an intelligent person. You have common sense. You have gut reactions. You have a lot of knowledge that you've been looking at. Think intelligently. Just like I said a minute ago, if your choices are bringing consequences that you don't like, think creatively about how to change that. Be intelligent and say, no, that didn't work. And use love and compassion towards yourself. Have compassion as you're trying to shift this powerlessness. Remember that you were hurt as a child. You're not damaged. You were hurt, and have compassion towards that. When you make a mistake, when you fall back into an old pattern, don't see it as powerlessness. See it as, oh, I did it again. I'm wounded, but I'm getting better, and I have compassion towards myself. And take advantage of those aha moments. Those moments when for a brief window you go, oh, that's why I do that. Ah, that didn't work. Write those down. Encapsulate them. Use them as escape routes. Use your aha moments. You can be a powerful person. You have inside of you all the aspects of who you were created to be. They're designed to make you powerful. You have power over all kinds of things we talked about. Please make that step. Look at this PDF again. Write that Bill of Rights. Do something to move into being that powerful person that you can be. Take a minute, drop me an email, ask a question, get involved with us. We have an online community we'd love to have you participate in because we want to help you become that powerful person. Thanks for listening.